The Pittsburgh Steelers, believe it or not, people, still have a chance of making the playoffs. The Steelers beat the Falcons 19-16 to improve to 5-7 and to keep their playoff hopes alive. Kenny Pickett had a pretty solid game. 16-28, 197 passing yards, 1 touchdown. The Steelers also had a pretty good performance on the ground as well. They had 154 rushing yards as a team. Kenny Pickett in this offense has played better over the last couple of weeks. I understand they still haven't really done anything fantastic. However, this offense is playing good enough that this team still has a shot of making it into the postseason. The defense has played at a really high level. TJ Watt has come back from his injury. We know what he does. Miguel Fitzpatrick, we already know what he's been doing this season as well. He pretty much also should be in the discussion for Defensive Player of the Year. You look at Pittsburgh. If they can win out or at least go 9-8, I think they have a very good chance of getting the 7th seed in the AFC. Now, right now, the New York Jets currently occupy the 7th seed right now at 7-5. But they just lost to the Minnesota Vikings. And their next 3 games are on the road against the Buffalo Bills. They got to play the Detroit Lions, the Jaguars. That's not an easy stretch. You probably could go 2 or 3. Then after that, their last 2 games to end the season, after they play Jacksonville, on the road against Seattle, and they play Miami. I think there's a very good chance that the New York Jets could slip up during this stretch. Yeah, their defense is really good, but their offense isn't that great because of the quarterback situation. So Steeler fans look at the offense and they cringe at it, but you look at the New York Jets offense sometimes, oh my goodness. And yeah, Mike White is playing at a pretty good level, but against good defenses, I don't really think he's that great. So I think that the Jets are going to end up fizzling out, but will they fizzle out enough for Pittsburgh to come and grab the 7th seed? That remains to be decided. They also have to worry about the Chargers, who are 6-6, the Patriots, who are also 6-6 as well. The Patriots, I think they're kind of more of an 8-9 team. I think they're nearing the point of the season where they're about to start fizzling out. The Chargers could be very interesting because they are really talented. However, fairly inconsistent. So there is a good opportunity for the Chargers to drop 2 games. You look at the Raiders, the Browns, who also are 5-7, along with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The good thing is the Steelers play both of those 2 teams. So if they beat the Browns, Raiders, don't really have to worry about them doing anything when it comes to them stealing a playoff spot. If they do their job, beat them, and win out. The Steelers' remaining games are the Ravens, on the road against Carolina, the Raiders, the Ravens again, and the Browns. This is probably the easiest stretch of the season that the Steelers have had. The first half of the season was absolutely brutal for this team. They played 8 teams that had a record of 500 or better. Bengals, Patriots, Browns, Jets, Bills, Bucks, Dolphins, Eagles. Holy moly. And with a rookie quarterback too. So the Steelers have won 3 out of their last 4 games. Their only loss during the last couple of weeks came to the Cincinnati Bengals. This team, as I mentioned earlier, their offense isn't nothing to write home about, but their offense has played better over the last couple of weeks compared to how they did the start this year. And these teams that they're beating, the Saints, Colts, Falcons, are teams that the Steelers should be beating. Nobody should really be expecting Pittsburgh to compete with the Bills, teams like the Chiefs and the Eagles. If the Steelers are going to make it to the playoffs, these are the teams that they have to beat. And they play the Ravens, which is their division rival, a team that the Steelers have had a lot of success over the last couple of years against. So the Steelers have a very good chance of getting into the playoffs. You look at the Raiders, I think they could be a really interesting team too, because they're playing some really good football, surprisingly. And the Browns, they're still hanging around. Deshaun Watson's back. Yeah, he had a rocky performance against Houston. But eventually he's going to end up figuring it out. He hasn't played football in a while, so of course he's going to be a little rusty. But eventually, when he gets things going, if the Browns can find ways to win games while he continues to get back into the swing of things, they could also be right there with Pittsburgh for that last spot. But at the same time, the Steelers do get to play the Raiders and the Browns. They pretty much control their own destiny, minus the Chargers and the Patriots and the Jets. But I think there is a path to the playoffs for the Steelers. All hope is not lost yet. And what about this? Imagine if the Steelers win out. Because this scenario that I just gave y'all is based mostly on the Steelers going 9-8. But there's a real possibility that this team can win out and get the 10-7 and steal that 7 seed from the Jets. And that's when things can get really interesting, because 9-8 is kind of really a 9-8 getting you into the 7 seed this season probably isn't going to happen unless you just have a lot of upsets that happen. But 10-7 realistically probably is what you need if you're Pittsburgh. I just went with 9-8 because I kind of think that's most likely what they would do, go 9-8. Because even though this schedule is pretty favorable, you guys already know who follow this team that the Steelers will mess around, beat the Ravens, beat the Raiders, beat the Browns, but then lose, but have a loss to Carolina that does them in. So I think that Pittsburgh ends up going 9-8, but if they do go 10-7, then their chances greatly improve. I think that you definitely have a good chance of getting in at 10-7, because then the Jets have a smaller room for error. And then at the same time, it puts a lot of pressure on them when it comes to that quarterback situation. But I think that the Jets, that 7 seed is definitely going to be up for grabs. Even if Pittsburgh isn't the team that takes it from them, I think the Jets are in a lot of trouble right now with their quarterback situation. The last thing that you want late in the season is uncertainty at quarterback. I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Once again, make sure that you go ahead, check out the JT Sports Podcast, available on all podcasting platforms, wherever you get your podcasts from, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Also, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're listening to this episode on YouTube. And I will see you guys shortly with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.